Hi everyone, my name is Alexander Mendez. I am Student Life Director at UCA El Salvador. Since 2014, in coordination with GracePass and Ignatian Solidarity Network, we have sent 2 students each year representing UCA El Salvador at Ignatian Family Teach-In for Justice. But this year, due to COVID-19 pandemic, an in-person meeting won't be possible. We are glad to be invited to sharing about our martyrs, their legacy, and the challenge that keeping that legacy alive represents. The government has carried out actions that violate human rights, institution weakening, and mismanagement of public economic resources. Moreover, government acts with dishonest, puts barriers to press freedom, and has no interest on establishing a dialogue with other government institutions like the Congress to develop public policies that look out for the most disadvantaged people. In this situation, UCA has kept its questioning position towards government's ground actions and has made a call to dialogue and agreement, just as our martyrs did it during civil war in the 80s. This position has put UCA in the middle of attacks by the government and followers who don't understand UCA's statement. This is the challenge we must face, being true to martyrs' legacy who gave their lives working for social justice. Finally, I want to say thank you for this invitation to participate on this virtual conference together. Hereunder, let's listen comments and thoughts to students from UCA El Salvador who participate on previous Ignatian Family Teach-In for Justice.
Hi, my name is Carla. I'm from the Jose Simeon Peñas University. I'm 23 years old and I am my senior year of computer science engineer. I came to Teach-In on 2018 and now I have the honor to be here talking to you a little bit more about my experience with the legacy of the martyrs. I started relating with the legacy of the martyrs when I got to the university. I learned the history, I learned more about the history of my country, and that got me more interested in topics like social justice, human rights, the environment. In a book of one of the Jesuits, Martin Barreau, he writes about how because of violence that we live in, we get so used to it that we lose that social responsibility and that we become numb to these things happening. And so how we see other people that are in pain, suffering, and we do nothing about it because we have lost that sensibility to the other people, to their suffering. And so the legacy of the martyrs teach us how to be probably human again, because I think with all the horrible things happening, they bring us back and remind us about what's important and how not to lose hope. They were in very difficult times and they tried to make a change, and they didn't stop no matter how hard the challenges were. They kept telling the truth. They kept helping the people. And at these times, I think that's the importance of the legacy of the martyrs, because they remember us that we can do something even in these difficult times, and that if each one of us makes a small change, we can make the big change that the world needs. And when I came to the Teach-In, I learned a lot. I came to this breakout session where they taught us how to analyze the context that we have, the people that we know, and put them in different sections on how they could help us and in the different areas that they could help us. So at the end of the teaching, I remember Chris Kerr saying that something like, after all that we learned, what we were going to do now, what we were going to do with it. And so I came with that thought to my country, and I kept telling myself, I've learned so much and I just can't keep it with me. I have to do something. I have to take action. And so the museum meant a place where I would educate myself and help educate others. But I had to take that next step and take action into something. So around that time, I came to educate myself a lot about the current situation of the environment and how in other countries they were taking action about it, and how in my country we are very behind. So I talked to the friend that I came with in 2018 to the teaching, that he was in the student government, so he helped me a lot in how to get started and supporting me. And so I talked to the other tour guides because I knew that they would like to be part of something like this, because they have the same background and the same inspiration of the legacy of the Martyrs. So they were very supportive, and so we started building this ecological movement at the university. The ecological movement is focused especially on educated people. So we have made different events where people get educated about different topics on environment, and a place where they can be open and ask questions, because as students, as future professionals, how we can help to see the problems and propose solutions, because since we have different areas of studies, we do have the abilities to propose solutions to the different situations that we have in the country. And something very important that I think is the truth. And because that's something that the martyrs live with. And I think here in our country and in other countries, in this kind of topic, it's like the companies are saying, oh yes, we're turning green, and we're turning zero waste, or this is sustainable. And probably many of them are not sustainable or zero waste or turning green, and people believe this. And here in our country, the problem is that we don't have that culture where we verify what people say to us. And the hard part is that most of the studies that are being done about the environment are in English. So people don't have access to this kind of studies, and we want to bring these studies to them so they can know about this information and have a place where they can see the current situation in a country and say if what these companies are saying is true, and be that kind of place that helps the people to be more awake about the current situation, more involved, and take action. That's pretty much what the movement is trying to do. Right now, we're facing a lot of challenges, and I think with the current situation, I think it's easy to lose hope. But with the legacy of the martyrs, I think it's a good point to remember that even in difficult times, we can make small changes, and no matter how hard they matter, as long as we make our best effort and care, we can do something. Right now in the country, the situation is a little bit unstable, and even the university is being attacked in many ways because the fathers are talking about, well, the university and the fathers are pointing a lot of flaws in the decisions that the government is making and on how handling things. So they're being publicly, the president and the government publicly telling how the university is lying and trying to make it the university look bad when they're only trying to tell the truth. And I think it's really interesting because it feels like if we were living in the same time as the similar times to what the Jesuits had to go through. And I think the importance of that is to keep working, to keep telling the truth, because changes must be made. And also with the recent news about the trial of the martyrs, people think that because this has happened a long time ago that it doesn't matter, but it does, because the people that have been more close to it, that have been affected by it, need this to close and to be able to take that next step in their lives. And it's important because the Jesuits say that it's important to know the truth in order to make justice, and in order to reconciliation. The justice is important to make that reconciliation that the people need. And also in the United States, I know that they're going through a lot of difficult times too. And I think the Teach-In gives those tools that you need to make those changes that you want to see. So I encourage you to make the most of this Teach-In because there's a lot to learn. And I hope that you get inspired by the legacy of the martyrs as I am, and to continue to and try to make those small changes that the world needs.
Hello, my name is Carlos Menendez. I'm 22 years old and I'm currently studying my last year of marketing at El Salvador. I'm happy and thankful to be part of this year Teaching for Justice and share to you my experience. My history with my university goes back to when I was 15 and I first visited the campus. I had the opportunity to visit with my school the on-campus museum called Monsignor Romero, where I could learn about our martyrs and the civil war of my country. This was the moment I decided to study there. I like the way they teach, I love the campus, and I was really impressed by the history. Learning about how the university actively fights for the rights of the most vulnerable people and how the students could participate in different activities to help the community was a life-changing experience. In 2016, I started my studies there. Since I have participated actively inside and outside the university in activities to help people. The same year I started my studies, I participated in a program to help kids from a public school near my community. This experience will be significant to me because this was the first time I worked so closely with them. I learned about the reality that my old people are suffering. Poverty and lack of quality education are some examples. Sometimes we know that something is happening around us, but it isn't until we are really face to face with this reality that we learn. That was my case. I knew that there was a problem, but it was until I met a kid, an 11 years old boy, that he made me change the way I look and the way I think. I spent almost a year working with this little boy, helping him with his classes and giving him help once a week. We were a group of 15 working with kids around 10 and 11 years old, but I had to work closely with this boy at a special request by the teacher because this boy was failing at school. As the year went by, I learned all kinds of things that the boy was suffering. I remember the day I got notified that this kid was missing school because his stepfather broke his jaw. Later, the teacher would tell me that the boy was physically and sexually abused at home. In my first year at the university, I didn't know too much about the legacy and the history of our martyrs as I know now. The first experience with this kid, the help and the advice that I received will help me to understand the real importance of keeping this fight nowadays. Here in El Salvador, we are suffering of social exclusion. I have been privileged all my life, and from my position, I've been able to help the most vulnerable. The university keeps the legacy of our martyrs fighting for this justice. In 2018, I was elected to the student's government. The same year, I had the opportunity to participate in the Teach-In for Justice. I learned that the impact of the life of our martyrs is not just in our country, in El Salvador, it's also outside. Initially, we could think that our problems could be different, but I learned that we are fighting for the same causes. Justice is common. Our countries are suffering from discrimination. We are being discriminated by our social status, by our language, from where we came, and from many different things. We are being divided, trying to keep us quiet and just keep going like nothing is going on. Here in El Salvador, the university, the authorities, teachers, and students are suffering attacks by many just because the way we think and the things we say. I know that many of you could be suffering the same thing. We need to look back to the history of our country, the history of our martyrs. If we keep the same way and don't look for a change, we know what will happen. Back when the civil war was going here in El Salvador, a group stand and call for justice, knowing that their lives could be at risk, even receiving threats, they didn't stop. We live in a different time where we have more liberties and freedom. As I said before, we can help from the position where we are. We need to look for a change and fight for social justice, starting in our home, our community, and our school. We have the life of a group that decided to fight and be the voice of people that didn't have one. Those ones that couldn't ask for help because the ones that were supposed to help them were actually abusing their position and keeping them quiet with threats or even killing them.
Hello guys, I am Raquel Garcia, and back in 2017 I had the opportunity to attend to the Ignatian Family Teach-In for Justice in Washington DC at that moment. And right now I know it is virtual due to COVID circumstances, but it is the same spirit to honor the lives for those that fight for social justice for all of us at that time and in this moment. In 2017, I was studying at the Central American University, UCA, at El Salvador, which is the place in which our martyrs died, and they were murdered for keeping alive that voice that is compromised. In my university, we do have a museum that is called Monsignor Romero Center. And at that time, in 2016-17, I was able to be part of a volunteering team of guides that are there to receive the people that are willing to learn more about our national history, about how hard it was around in the 60s to 90s, our society. How and to learn a little bit about people that were fighting at that time to get us right now the freedom, or to get us the to get us the knowledge of how we can claim for those rights that we all have for being human. At that time, my mind blew about knowing how they were really compromised to death to give their lives at the cost of dying and living for this cause. They really believed that they had to compromise in their time at that time in their environments that they live to fight and to give back to their societies and help the people that they were around to try to keep those gaps, those really big gaps that our society in El Salvador had at that time in terms of inequality, in terms of injustice, in terms of abuse that our people were living, and that inspired me to keep not only my personal life into a track related to that, also my professional life. Right now, I'm currently waiting for my graduation in business administration, and even though I work in the private sector for a private organization in human resources, I am really compromised to what they taught us about the importance of being ethical, the importance of raising your hand when you see something that is not right, and also the importance of giving back to our society, as we are a privileged part of it that we had the opportunity to study. And right now, I also I am starting an initiative that is related to help people that had trouble in these times of COVID with getting their earnings to survive, or to give to their families what they need, especially in terms of losing their jobs. I own an account of tips that every Monday I share with everyone that follow my account, and it is at seeyoumonday.sv. if you want to follow us. And I am giving back my time, my knowledge, and we are also getting a network of volunteers that from their experience in finance, in employment, they are giving back to everyone that are in need in these hard times of COVID. It's really important that the stories of Monsignor Romero, of Rutilio Grande, of our martyrs of the University UCA is still alive, not only at the 80s, not only at 90s, not only in 2020, but also to the next generations. Why? Because someone will need inspiration somehow, someday, to get that courage alive, and to get the inspiration of what being a Christian and what being a human being is. As some of you might know, right now in my country, we are not at war right now officially, but we are living in times in which we are still seeing the same injustice that at that time Monsignor Romero and our martyrs saw in the 80s. There are people that are not receiving their human rights completely respected. There is still need. There is still people that are not having access to an equal education opportunity, there is still people that are is victim of the system, social system of justice. So to tell you a little bit about the things that we are living in El Salvador, we have, through the times of war and post-war moments in my country, we were having a bipolarization of powers. One power of the right, apparently the people that were focused on capitalism, and the other part that was at that time claiming to be focused on the human rights or focused on the social justice, or apparently related sometimes with socialism. So we had governments that were promising our people that they will keep really the right thing for our country. But as we had the two experiences of those two powers, back in 2 years ago, we had a new opportunity of government, but we are right now experiencing or seeing that our promised government of freedom and of justice is not really what we were promised at that time. We are, even though this government is focused on publicity and or apparently telling the world that things are right in El Salvador, as I told you, we are still seeing things that are warning us of human rights accomplishments. We are told that our country is lowering its levels of violence, but they are focusing only on martyrs, or they are focusing on those kind of things, but we are still have injustice in terms of violence in at home, violence against women, violence against children, also political violence is still there. The government, not only the central government, but also the Congress, are not in agreement of getting the dialogue open to let down their interests, their own interests, and putting our people interests in before their own. I know that in the US you are living things like that. You are experiencing riots and protests against people that is not willing to compromise their work for getting those human rights respected. So my final message, guys, will be to be those Monsignor Romeros, to be those martyrs at your country. I know it's hard. I know sometimes you will face yourself into times that you will be doubting of being ethical or not. But if we don't do it from our countries, if we don't do it from our positions, who else will do it?
Hello everyone, my name is Aura Cuestas. I am 24 years old. Currently, I am studying architecture at Universidad Centroamericana José Simeón Cañas, UCA. As we know, the Martyrs of UCA have played an important role in my major. In these years, I learned a phrase that I like very much and that I want to share to you today. This phrase is, "Together we build a solidarity and lasting peace based on justice." For me, it represents the importance of society. In UCA, they form us in an empathic and integral way. So we care a lot about society. They show us the reality of the country, the reality we face every day, from the fight they carry out in the face of social injustices, exclusion, insecurity, inequality. And now it is our responsibility as society to love El Salvador the way they did. Furthermore, I feel committed to transmit this message to build enjoyable, united and stronger cities. That is why from the opportunities offered through the university, we honor the legacy of the martyrs. People who never stop helping and embracing their society to become better and grow together. It is extremely important to know and recognize the legacy of the martyrs, since they made many changes for the good of society. They fought for social justice and struggles that continues today, such as migration, inequality, and insecurity. It has been fought, and for many of us is remembered as living flame, and it is a current challenge in the face of the situations that are experienced in the world to continue with these legacies, to continue building peace as they transmit it. And now, how do we face the unfair reality? We can build solidarity to eradicate violence. Therefore, the power is in our hands. Each of need to have conscience, so together we can obtain a change, and this change gradually bear fruit. So that in our country the levels of violence are eliminated and we can live in peace, harmony, and this family nucleus which is the basis of society. Remain strong, united, and thus strengthening our country for this reason. The constant struggle against social inequalities. The explosion that we live today is in us.
Hello everyone. First of all, I want to thank to the Ignatian Family Teach-In for Justice because our experience from El Salvador is always included in this important event where we remember the legacy of our martyrs. Martyrs' legacy is really huge. I can find it in my daily life, at home, at work, everywhere. Because in any place and any circumstance, we can do our best to be fair with others. That's possible if we have empathy. We need to practice it more. Having respect for everyone, of course, is part of this legacy because it doesn't matter if you are rich or poor, if you're an engineer or a cashier. We all deserve respect, but it's important to find out what are the excluded groups in our society, beginning at our universities, works, and neighborhoods. It's important to recognize the respect for the human rights of the people. Our martyrs always try to find the justice and the peace, specifically in the context of the civil war at El Salvador. They were the voice for those that didn't have voice to extern all type of injustice. And now, more than 30 years later, we have people governing our world where they prefer to exclude groups like immigrants, where they pretend to separate our races and sow hatred, and at the same time use this injustice to interchange votes. So, in that way, they always have false promises and they steal at the governments. Events like this allows us to reflect on different problems and to show the whole world that new generations have the intention to change the reality of vulnerable groups and that we wish justice for everyone. And as our martyrs, we want to be the voice for those that don't have voice. In the way that times go on, people that manage our world seems to be more powerful. But the new technologies, social media, are ways that we can use in our favor to extern injustice in a pacific way, to interchange ideas with people from other countries and see what we have in common and give solutions for the injustice. Particularly in El Salvador, we have a new government that does not comply with the law and wrote to the Parliament and the Supreme Court at the point that February 9th of this year he entered to the Parliament with the army in a way to influence them to vote for his interests. They disrespect and attach using state resources to journalists, universities like our UCA and other institutions of our country when they question specifically topics related to the public management. It's our responsibility to still alive the legacy of our martyrs, daily fighting for our brothers and sisters, for a better country and a better world. So, guys, in summarize, I could say the martyr's legacy is more alive than ever in El Salvador and in the rest of the world. In our country, even though they respect and attaches to UCA, our university still being a critical institution looking for a state in the search of social justice, a state that's still in depth with our society. Our greatest challenge is not to remain silent in the face of injustice, like our martyrs.